The next section I'd like to take a closer look at is what's known as the data table. Below our graph, on just about every report, you're going to have a data table. The information displayed here is going to be dependent upon the type of report and the metric group that you've selected in the Explorer tab controls, which we saw here towards the top of the screen. As I scroll down, you'll notice that we have some immediate options. Here at the top, we have our primary dimension. Again, this is specific to the type of report we're in, but this information will be roughly the same for just about every report that you'll interact with here on Google Analytics. So you can see that my primary dimension is currently set to country, and we see the country list here on the left-hand side. If I select city, that primary dimension is going to change, and now I'm looking at all the cities that are specific to the sessions on this website. Now, you'll notice that on the far left-hand side, there are some selection boxes. These are going to allow me to plot these rows. So if I select, say, United States and Mexico by selecting the checkboxes to the left, and then choose Plot Rows, you'll notice that at the top, Google's now going to show me sessions, and then United States compared to Mexico. And as I hover over, I can see that data appear on the chart above. If you'd like, you can simply select the checkbox next to the label country, and that'll deselect all of your Plot Rows key. Now, let's say you want to add a second dimension. You can do that by selecting from the secondary dimension dropdown and choosing from the list. Google's going to try to help you understand your data by recommending certain secondary dimensions that tend to be most popular in these types of reports. So let's take a look at their users list, and we can scroll through here and see what options we have available. So let's say we were interested in looking at the type of operating system that people were using in various countries. I'll bring in the secondary dimension, and now we can start to see our data appear. Now, you'll notice on the right-hand side, the first column is sessions. And this is going to be the primary sorting column for this table. So we're currently sorting by the popularity or those who had the most sessions. In this view, we can see that for this site, the United States and Android users make up about 50% of the total sessions, followed by the iOS. You'll notice that if I look down here towards Mexico, Android is also the number one popular device for Mexico, but interestingly enough, the second most popular device is Windows. So that helps me understand how I might need to tailor my site for the particular user. We're going to talk more about how to use these specific reports in later movies, so I'll give you some additional context as to things that you might be looking for. For now, let's just focus on how to navigate. At any time, you can remove the secondary dimension by choosing the X next to the label in that column. If you'd like to sort a view, you can simply select the column name, and the sort is going to change. In this case, I'm now going to be ascending from the lowest to the highest. And you can show the different amount of rows in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you wanted to see, say, 500 data points at a time, you could do that and scroll through the list accordingly. If you want to sort by new users, simply select that column, and the data will change accordingly. In the upper right-hand corner, you have a search option, and this is going to bring in some very basic search filtering. Let's say we only wanted to look for, say, the United States. I could type United States and hit search, and now I'm only going to see the data specific to that search term. If you'd like to change your filters in an even more advanced format, you'll select the advanced link, and now you can add various dimensions or metrics to filter out the data that appears in this table. I'm going to talk more specifically about how to use advanced filtering in a later movie, so I'm not going to dive into it just yet. I'll simply choose Cancel to leave that menu. You'll notice here on the far right, there are some icons, and these are your table display buttons. This is going to change the way the data in the table is displayed. I'm going to clear my filter, so in this case, I'm going to bring all of that data back. And let's choose the percentage graph here, which is the second option in the list. Now we can see the data again, country on the left, sessions, and there's a drop down here to bring in any various options that we'd like. And we have a view on the right-hand side as it relates to the majority of our sessions. In this case, the United States is fairly popular, so this chart is really, really hard to see. We'd have to hover over these tiny slices to get an idea, but this suggests to me that the prominent market for this website is the United States. Next is the performance view. This displays a horizontal bar chart, and that shows the relative performance for the selected metric. So again, we can quickly at a glance see the significance of the United States as it relates to overall sessions on the website. Next is the comparison view. And this is going to display a bar chart plotting the performance of the selected metrics relative to the site average. So think of the middle line as your baseline. The negative numbers to the left indicate performing worse than the site average, and numbers to the right indicate performing significantly better than the site average. In this case, it's significantly biased to the United States, and that's why we see such a huge percentage in that view. The last one here is the pivot table, and this is going to rearrange the information in a table for certain reports, and it's going to pivot that data on a second dimension. So if you'd like, you can bring in your pivot metrics next to the country dropdown here. And let's say we want to pivot against sessions and bounce rate. The pivot table will do just that. I'm not going to go specifically into how to use pivot tables and what they are. There are some great movies on the site that you can look for to understand better how to navigate a pivot table. I'm going to go back to our standard view here, which is just our tabular view. And I'd like to point out that at the bottom right-hand side of every report is the option to refresh the report. So you'll notice that it says this report was generated on 6/1/15 at 11:31 a.m. And if I choose to refresh the report, I can then look at that date to see if that's helped bring in any additional data. So if you're looking at a view specifically for today, you might want to refresh that report if it's been a few hours since you last looked at it. And that's really the basics to navigating the table view. As we get deeper into these reports, how you customize and modify this information will become even more apparent, and it'll get easier to really understand what we're doing with those primary dimensions and secondary dimensions.